Be warned, listener, I may fanboy out a little bit today. I might get a little hot and bothered, a little nervous because I've had many musical guests on the show, and I was lucky enough to grow up with a bunch of them. So it's always pretty easy. It's kind of like a phone call. There's a certain familiarity, but not so for today's guest. Doug Martsch, I only know by reputation and by his kick ass body of music stretching back to the late 80s. I was a big Tree People fan. I'm a big Built to Spill fan, and thus I'm thrilled to welcome this week's Fresh Face in Hell, Mr. Doug Martsch. Doug, thanks for playing, man.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, so I'm kind of fascinated with Iowa. We'll get into this, or Idaho, rather. We'll get into this as we go along. But you were born not in Boise, but in Twin Falls. And I'm always kind of fascinated by artists who grow up in rural, and let us say, like, culturally sheltered or at least not super cosmopolitan locales. So I want to know your earliest memories of life in Twin Falls as a kid.
Yeah, well, I mean, Twin Falls was of course I grew up there, so it just felt normal. It was pretty I wasn't, like, out on the farm or anything like that. I kinda grew up in an apartment complex for a while, my first few years, and then moved into a little house, and I was just in a neighborhood, and I don't know, it was pretty felt very just regular, normal, American upbringing.
Yeah, do you have a sense of a bigger, larger world outside of Twin Falls? So you weren't super like when you were 8 years old, like super ambitious, like I'm gonna conquer the world and I'm gonna go to New York City and I'm gonna.
Not at all. Back then, and even to this day, I rarely look past a week from now or a month from now. I never thought about what I was gonna do with myself or where I'd end up. I kind of thought I would be there forever or something, I don't know.
So we're roughly the same vintage, I think a year apart. I think like a year older than you. So I'm really curious, what was the first music that grabbed you by the collar as a kid? And I don't mean the first cool music, just your first exposure to the music that really got your attention.
I liked music a lot forever. Like, I listened to the radio all the time as a little kid. I'd listen to the Casey Kasem Top 40 Countdown, and, certain songs popped out at me. Um, I don't know. I remember, like, one of my first favorite songs was "Song Sung Blue" by Neil Diamond for
He's a great
whatever.
songwriter, man.
I had no
Really getting
idea.
his love lately because of that, biopic. Yeah,
Um
I was a big Casey Kasem fan too.
Mhm.
Moving all the way up to number 17 this week. This British duo, like, yeah, it's refreshing to hear somebody because that was a era of punk or popular music, that big bloated infrastructure musical scene, guys doing rails off the board, and but like it's refreshing. Another guy that talks about that is Eric D. Johnson of Fruit Bats, how he kind of grew up with that sort of 70s FM radio music, and it how is that? I mean, has it informed you in some way?
Yeah, well, something that, that you realize later is that it was all like, it was every genre, There was R&B and rock and soul and, country, and so there's just every kind of music would show up, so you kinda got exposed to a lot of different things. I remember, I'd leave the radio on all day and just kinda wait for one song or "Oh, yeah, I like that song," but most of it was just kind of in the background, and I just kinda dealt with it, but, every once in a while, there's things that pop on that I get excited about, and, and then as I got like, when I started junior high school, I kind of realized rock was my music, and bought my first cassette tape was Billy Squier, and,
Oh god, me too, 1981, Little League All-Stars. That summer I had to stay in Aberdeen, and all the other kids got to stay in a host family, like, in the nicer suburbs, and they got to sleep on bunk beds, and I stayed with this one family called the Skippers that lived on the other side of the railroad track, and I had to stay all by myself, and man, I had my Walkman, and that Billy Squier, I think it was the one was it the record before the one that had the
yeah.
stroke on it? Yeah.
Oh, really? You had Tale of the Tape?
I think so,
Wow.
because that was getting some pretty heavy airplay on FM radio too. So
Mm.
Billy Squier was your entree, that's awesome. At what point did you actually, like, pick up a guitar or start playing a piano or decide you were gonna be a musician?
Well, So in junior high school, I started getting into rock music and, like, heavy metal and stuff like Ozzy and Def Leppard and, kind of like pop, like, melodic heavy metal music I liked. Um, and I met my, like, right when I started junior high school, I met Brett Nelson, who went on to play bass on most of the Built to Spill albums. And he was, we bonded over comics initially, but
Were you a
he was
Marvel
like
guy or a DC guy?
Marvel. We were both
Yeah.
hardcore Marvel. Um,
DC was lame back then, man.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I dipped into DC a little bit, some Teen Titans or something, but Marvel. I was a big Daredevil fan. Like that's when Frank Miller was doing his run of Daredevil. I kind of caught it sort of in the middle or something, and that was really exciting as a comic book kid. Like it was, so much better than all the other comics.
I got chills because I was a Daredevil guy. My prized comic possession in the plastic sleeve was Daredevil #2,
Oh
and I mean,
wow.
I mowed a lot of lawns. I mean, I paid like 75 bucks for it. It was probably in, like, fine condition. It wasn't mint or anything, but it was like that, and I had a kind of an early run of Fantastic Fours, kinda like
Mhm.
like mid-40s to mid-50s, but Daredevil
Crazy.
was always Daredevil's my guy. One of my big regrets, 2 regrets. I don't have a lot of them, but one of them is selling my original run of punk records when I moved away to college, and so I had all the original Discord stuff and all
Mm.
the old SST, I mean, stuff that was like 500 pressings and stuff, and I sold them basically for a song. The good news is that I spent it on jazz records because I was kinda turning a corner into jazz when I was like 17, 18. And then the other regret is that I sold the comic books because I could buy 2 houses with the comic books I had, and what I
Seriously,
hung on
wow.
to was the baseball cards because they were just so much a part of my, and they're just the bottom just dropped out of the baseball card market, so they're not worth anything. It's like a fucking museum or something, and I sold these punk records. I go to record shows, and I'm like, "Oh my god, SSD Control is selling for like $5,000 or something," and I'm like, "Oh god." I got
Heartbreaking.
mouths to feed. So, how old were you when you finally moved to Boise?
So I was gonna say that my with Brett Nelson, he was into music, and he was like in the new wave, Flock of Seagulls, and he had like the first new wave haircut I ever saw in Boise or in Twin Falls, and the only one for a long time. And he was like planning on graduating from school and moving to England and playing in a band. So being around him, he had a bass and keyboards and he'd play a little bit and my brother and sister were older than me and they had acoustic guitars. They played a little tiny bit. So I kind of every once in a while mess around. But I never got, never was serious and, didn't even want to hurt my little fingers until right in 1984, like a month before I started high school, I moved to Boise. And a bunch of things all happened kind of at the same time. That move was a big deal, and I had this month before school started that I didn't have anything to do, and I didn't know anybody, and I learned how to play the guitar in that time. And the other big thing was I kind of started to transition into alternative music a little bit, like like Bowie was kind of a thing, like heard like I always loved Space Oddity and I heard, Ziggy Stardust, and it was just such a great rock song, and so I got like a greatest hits David Bowie, and then I realized he did Golden Years and Fame, like things I didn't know were him, and then he kinda then had like Ashes to Ashes, which was this kinda weird new wave music, so he was kind of my transition from rock to new wave, and also around that time I saw REM on David Letterman, and it was I remember being really impressed because he said that they were the number 1 college radio band, and that seemed really, like, prestigious to me. So I listened to Murmur and David Bowie, and then there was a college radio station, and I discovered the Smiths, and then I was done with heavy metal, and I had moved on to this kinda stuff. And then Brett Nelson It was still in Twin Falls, but we
I
kept a
was wondering, you
relationship.
left him back in Twin
Yeah.
Falls.
I left him behind. We kept our relationship though, and we started to grow together into punk rock, like The Replacements and Husker Du and, some other things. Replacements were kind of our biggest thing that we bonded over and felt like that was kind of the kind of music we could kinda make. And so we started making music together long distance. Well, not r we would write things and we'd get together every couple months or something, show each other our songs, and, so we had our band through high school called Farm Days, um, and yeah, that's when I learned to play guitar to
How
answer
did
your
the
question.
mats come across you in Boise? I mean, like, how'd you find the replacements?
Brett found it. I think he just found it at the record store, just kind of, it was those days when you just something looked weird, the record cover looked cool and you bought it, that kind of a thing.
So you started a band, what did you call it? A happy farm what did you just call it?
It was called Farm Days.
Farm Days? And so that was you and that was you and Brett.
It was me and Brett, and then mostly it was Andy Caps on drums, who was the drummer on There's Nothing Wrong with Love. So basically, There's Nothing Wrong with Love, Built to Spill lineup, but when we were teenagers.
So and then Tree People, it's interesting, I'm kind of fusing I mean, does the heavy metal, the hard stuff kinda comes back in, the replacements, and then it's hard to just like, talk to me about Tree People, because that seemed like a kind of a watershed moment for, your musical influences sort of, from what I know of them now, kinda coalescing.
Yeah, so when I moved to Boise, like, within the first week or 2 of starting high school, I had a class where I shared, like it was like a lab or something, and I shared a table with Skater Dude, and he told me about State of Confusion, um, and about there's a hardcore scene, and it was all brand new to me, and, so felt like I don't remember when it was, but sometime in that first semester of high school, I went and saw State of Confusion play, and that was 3 of the guys that ended up being in Tree People, and they were all older, they were all out of high school, um, and I don't know, I didn't really understand it too much, it was just really, kind of blistering hardcore, and, but then I met their girlfriends, a couple of them had girlfriends that were in high school with me, and I became friends with them, and then met the State of Confusion guys, and really hit it off, especially I hit it off really well with their guitar player, Scott, um, and so then I got their cassette, and then I fell in love with them, and they became my favorite band, and I didn't really like much other hardcore, there was things here and there I liked okay, but I still had my mind was in melody,
Yeah, see, I don't I gotta confess, I've heard of State of Confusion, I don't know State of Confusion,
Mhm.
but, like, when I think of Tree People, I think of kinda high energy, melodic punk. I mean, did was there an element of that in State of Confusion, or were they just straight
Not
ahead,
really.
like
No,
yeah, they were just
they were
hardcore?
full on hardcore,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Scotty taught me how to play the pentatonic blues scale, and, um, and I would, like, go watch them practice and stuff, and, I just loved 'em. Y they had, not singing melodies so much, but, like, just cool guitar riffs and just rad they're all so great. They're still one of my favorite bands ever, and they have a couple records that are so horribly recorded, it's heartbreaking, um, but probably still worth checking out.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel that way about the whole Mummies catalog, and I know they did it
mm,
on purpose. I
uh,
was so relieved when they did a John Peel session because I was like, "Oh my god, I
yeah.
could hear everything." The rest of it sounds like it's recorded underwater, and, of course, with the punk DIY ethos, I appreciate the whole low budget rock thing, but god, I just wanted to hear those instruments a little cleaner.
Yeah, with these guys, it definitely wasn't an ethos. It was like recording with, you know, a guy that just recorded country music and didn't really understand what was going on. I don't even understand how he could have recorded it as badly as he did. But anyway, um, the all through my high school time, State of Confusion was a band, and about the time that I graduated, their drummer kinda drifted off, and I feel like I kinda played with him, played bass for him for a couple shows or something, and then we decided to start Treepeople, and everyone kinda switched instruments. Scotty stayed on guitar, their bass player, Wayne, went to drums, and their singer, Pat, Scott's brother, went to bass, and never played it before, and we all kinda learned together, and we kinda were and I played an acoustic guitar, we're kinda more mellow, like, had a little bit of punk influence, but way more of kind of a pop thing. And yeah, it was great. It was really fun. They were my heroes, and I was getting to play in a band with them. And then we decided to move to Seattle, and then we got to Seattle, we got a rehearsal space, and we just jammed all the time. And that's when we made Guilt, Regret, Embarrassment. Became more of like a punk band,
So you were what,
melodic
like
punk band.
18, 19
Mhm.
years old at that time?
When I moved to Seattle, I think I was 18. Maybe I was 19. Yeah, I graduated in '87 and moved to Seattle when I was in '89, so I was 18 or
And
19,
what
but
about Brett? Did he follow you?
Brett did not. Brett and when I got out of high school, our big plan was to get out of high school and get farm days going, and Brett moved to Boise, and we kind of just, like, kind of w our we went different ways in our minds. I started kinda partying, like, doing drugs, doing psychedelic drugs, and he didn't wanna do that, and, um and we just sort of, like, lost touch with each other, and he went back to Twin Falls, got a job at the Tupperware factory, and and then I was, like, doing his dream, and he was just, like, had a baby and worked at a Tupperware factory and was, like, kind of given up on everything, and then we didn't reconnect until after I was done with Tree People and started Built to Spill, like, a few years later.
And so that would have been what, 1989,
I think 90 so 93, I made the first Built to Spill record with my friends Brett Netson, different guy, and Ralph, my brother-in-law, and then the next year, Brett Nelson showed up in Boise, and so I started playing with him, and made, the There's Nothing Wrong with Love record.
So how many of those first Built to Spill records, how many were on indie labels before you guys
Our
signed with those?
first record was on CZ, our second record was on Up. First record is Ultimate Alternative Waivers, then There's Nothing Wrong with Love was on Up, and then we had, like, a collection of various singles and stuff that was on K, and then, an EP, Built to Spill Caustic Resin, which is just me playing with Caustic Resin, which is another big big deal band for me in Boise. It was Brett Netson's band. There's Brett Nelson and Brett Netson, it's confusing. Brett
I'm
Netson is the
already yeah.
guitar player, but he did play bass on the first Built to Spill record. Brett Nelson is a bass player, um, who was really in my childhood, like, music buddy. Um,
So it was like 4 or
and then that
5
was
records
it.
before
So
Warner?
3 albums and a EP, and then we were on Warner Brothers after that.
Okay. So, you know, by the time we get to Warner, this can be an awkward dance, which can be a blessing or a curse as an artist. I've seen my friends in all disciplines, books, music, film, struggle with new levels of sometimes unexpected success. How did you frame that all as an artist? Because I mean, you grew up so grassroots doing the, suddenly you got the record company to work for it. And like, what was that transition like for you? Like creatively, like did you feel like you had the same amount of creative control? Did you have to deal with a bunch of suits all the time saying, "Oh, we want you to go this direction, that direction"? I'm always interested to hear how, like, sort of free-spirited musicians that are sort of self-made people, how they deal with that, like, first wave of success.
Sure, well, I was in high school when, the Replacements and Husker Du got signed to major labels, and to me, it was just the worst, like, I felt like their music just went downhill, like, what are they doing? What are they thinking? So I was always, you know, I like, I did not like the idea of indie bands or whatever signing to major labels. I thought it was a bad idea. Then when I got the opportunity, I was I definitely wanted to quit my day job and get a record deal. So, um, So, but I was very nervous about it, and it was kind of it was a the reason we got signed was because grunge had broken a couple years earlier, and they were just kinda signing all kinds of people just from the Northwest, and so I kinda got caught up in that, and, um, my biggest fear was, like, I didn't feel like I was good enough to be on a major label, like, I didn't really have the chops to deliver, like, a hit record or anything. So, I ta when I talked to people at the labels, I would tell them that, and then when we made our first record, I kind of went a little bit just the way the songs turned out, but also there was a little bit of a conscious decision to make the songs un unpromotable, you know? They're all really kinda long
That's
and
right
kinda
in the spirit of
weird,
things. God love
and
you.
but I really felt like I had the record label people behind my back, um, as doing it this way. Like, I kind of felt like they were kinda signing Built to Spill to show that they would let bands do what they wanted to do, and that's where I wanted to be. So, in a way, it worked nicely because we did just get to do what we wanted to do. We had complete creative control, um, and I didn't really wanna be promoted, and they didn't really promote us very much. And then as the years went on, I thought, "Well, it'd be nice if some of these later records could sell as much as the first couple did." Um, so, I kinda wish that they were promoting a little bit more. But also I feel like the records that did really well, the first couple albums on Warner Brothers, Keep It Like a Secret and Perfect From Now On, they're just people just like them. They're the way Phil, like, recorded them. I understand that it was kind of our heyday for whatever reason. So anyway, I don't even know what I was talking about.
I I remember seeing an interview, I think maybe it was you with Brett, I believe Nesson, was your he was a bandmate in Built to Spill, where you sort of called yourself a control freak, and he was like, "Nah, you're not a control freak," and you were like, "Yes, I am," or, "Are you a control freak? Are you a taskmaster like Benny Goodman or Chick Webb?" I mean,
Yeah, no, I think I'm not like that at all. I think I have a certain amount a little bit of vision that I wanna try to do, but I'm not a control freak. When am working on music with people, a lot of it is completely, um, I can't why can't I think of the easiest word? Where you work together, make up songs together, collaborative,
collaboration. Yeah.
very collaborative. But if I have a song and it's just ready to go and I just want them to learn it, I just play it and let people play whatever they want, and then, if they're doing if they're doing it halftime and I meant it to be double time, I say that, or here and there, I might have a little thing like, "Oh, I want the bass to do this little lick here," or something. So, no, I'm not a control freak,
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
sound like you acquiesce quite a bit, or so were you
I do.
joking when you said that? Because like,
I th
he kinda
I think I might have thought I was, and then I think I might have learned, like, what control freaks really are, and that I wasn't on that level. I realized I was just, like, a concerned creator that wanted some say in what my stuff was doing.
so, like, in the Built to Spill, context, is it usually you who comes into the room with the song idea, or do other people come in and songwrite it? Talk to me about the songwriting process. I mean, what you just described is you'll have something and they kinda add their parts. Does anybody else ever come in with, like, a song and say, like, "I'm gonna take the lead on this one. What do you guys do what you want?"
Yeah, it kinda changed from record to record a little bit, so for the most part, I come in with songs and we play and we just learn them. No one's ever come in with a song and said, "Let's do my song." It's we did, like Tree People was like that. We did Scott songs and Pat songs and even Wayne songs. But this band just wasn't like that, and I don't think anyone really ever expected it to be like that. But that being said, there was w when we made Keep It Like a Secret, that was the first record where we just jammed a bunch. Like, I had a space for us to jam, and I would record our just jam sessions, just people improvising and making up song, making it, someone coming up with a riff, and we join in, and then taking, all those little pieces and turning them into songs, and or adding them to songs, things that I had written. So, that record was pretty collaborative, and then the next record, Ancient Melodies of the Future, I just wrote songs and we played them. The next record, You in Reverse, way back to jamming again and coming up with stuff together, and then I piece it all together and write the words and decide which parts get used and stuff. But, so it's kind of would go back and forth a little bit, and then the last few records, I've written things. I think those are the 2 main collaborative things, those 2
Sounds
albums.
like you're in an enviable position to just sort of, like, stay in a creative incubator and not have this pressure from the record companies or, like,
Yeah, 0
yeah.
pressure from
Yeah,
anyone.
I wonder if you'd hit a top 1 hit, if that remains, you know what I mean? I'm just always curious, like, if you have enough success, if it's like, "Okay, we gotta go to back to the well here," and, like, what does it take? You have to occupy a certain space, I feel like, in the marketplace to I mean, I know it's this way with fiction, like, every time I've like, the sales track is spiked, there's just, like, a little more pressure from the agent or
Mm.
something like, "Well, that worked," and I'm just like, "Nope." That's why I always stay, like, 2 or 3 books ahead so I never have to deal you know what I mean? I'm gonna write what the fuck I want, you know what I mean? That's the
Over
whole reason I'm doing that. Once it
yeah.
becomes a sausage making operation, I'm out. So, I listened to, Perfect from Now On with my coffee this morning, and man, I love that record. People ask me this about books, and I suspect your answer might be similar to mine, but is there a period or a record where you really felt like you got the closest to your original impetus as a musician, or is this a situation where the goalpost is always moving?
Yeah, more the latter for sure. Perfect from Now On is actually a good example of that might be the record where I gave up trying to have a vision, where I really wanted it to sound a certain way and couldn't get it to be like how I wanted it to be, and kind of realizing that maybe it's more interesting the way that it turned out than what I had in mind. Just, you know, I heard it with art where it's like the, uh the things you can't do well or whatever are what define your style, you know? Um, so I kind of accepted that at that point, and then after that, yeah, I still would try hard, but it was more like letting like, listening back to what you're doing and working with that instead of trying to like, make this guitar tone just the guitar tone you hear in your head, you know? Like, you mess with your pedals and your knobs a little bit, and then you just gotta go with what's there.
So that's interesting. I mean, you're kinda talking about, like, what you saw as your sort of limitations as an artist. You were saying, like, your limitations defining, like, the decisions you make artistically or whatever. Like, what do you see as your limitations? Chances are your fans will say, "No, you're not limited." But, like, for you as an artist, like, what do you kind of view as your, like, bugaboos creatively or artistically?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, my voice, which is, not a very conventionally good voice, and I wish I could sing better, but I also understand that that's kind of part of what has gotten us some attention is that my voice is sort of weird and stands out in its own way or whatever. Um, and, guitar playing, when I was younger, really for a long time, like definitely through those like through the first Warner Brothers records and stuff, through the aughts, I, uh, I never really practiced playing guitar. I would just write songs, and all my energy was kind of about writing. And so, like Perfect from Now On, when I go in the studio to record those songs, I would just like, I can't play this. Like, I'm not good enough to play these parts that I wrote because I haven't really practiced them a bunch. And that was a time too where I didn't really even understand that you could practice and get better. you know, I kind of had this idea that, this is how good I am at guitar and it's not going to get much better. And, it kind of was, there's a little bit of truth to that too. But, after, 25 years later of playing guitar, I realized that, oh yeah, if you play all the time, you can get a little bit more confident and better on the guitar. So, yeah, it was a lot of struggle making those records. I would do so many takes of guitar just trying to get basic kind of things, and it's, it was, I can just say Phil Ek is a very patient man to sit there and let me do that for.
Your humility is refreshing, I gotta say. So, pretty early on, pre-Warner, early '90s, your idea was that you would be the only permanent fixture in Built to Spill, kinda like Eels with Mark Oliver Everett or something, that other musicians would kinda cycle in and out of the band. As a guy who's often been wary of collaboration and art myself, one of the reasons I'm a novelist first and a filmmaker third, because I'm mercilessly accountable, relentlessly productive, and not everybody always works as fast as me because I'm manic, right? So I work really fast and I get frustrated, and so I gotta wonder, where did this conception of being the only fixture originate? Was it a I want to control my artistic vision thing, or was it a I just always want a fresh influx of ideas and influences thing, or was it just being in a band's like a five-way marriage? I don't wanna deal with the personalities. So it's like,
Yeah, I
w
mean, all of them. Originally, it was because, I wanted to make a record in Boise, but I was gonna be moving to somewhere else. I was gonna follow my wife to go to graduate school somewhere. So I was like, "Well, I'll just have a name, and then I'll have this band here, and then when I move there, I'll find new people to be in the band, and that will be how the band is." But, but then, also it was, mostly that I could collaborate with different people so that the band wouldn't have one specific sound. It'd be like David Bowie, where we could make different kinds of records, like, have different phases, make different kinds of records. And then also it was for the being with different people and the personalities and stuff. The Tree People was a pretty intense group of people, couple of brothers, and then another kind of best friend of one of them. It was like it got pretty ugly, and we were pretty mean to each other in a lot of ways, and there's some physical fights and bridges burned and stuff like that. So that was also part of it, that I didn't want to be tied down to a group of people like that. And the other thing that you said, whatever that was, having creative control over the thing and it being my thing. So all of it.
y I'm just trying to imagine. You just seem so mellow, dude. You just seem like an imperturbable, kind of like still water type of guy. I'm just trying to imagine you going ape shit on a bandmate. I can't see it.
It wasn't me doing the fighting.
Okay,
But I
because
can be a
I've known
dick,
you for all of 32 minutes now, but I'm just like, "Man, this guy is so mellow." Um,
Yeah, but I can be a smart ass and a dick to people too, I'm not that. I'm not s I'm maybe mellow, and maybe I was a little I think I was a little more obnoxious back when I was younger too. I think I've mellowed out.
I wanna talk about Boise, like now Boise, because I just love Boise. I was at Treefort like 5 or 6 years in a row doing author appearances and even helped curating the literary portion of it, like
Nice.
saying, "Oh, you should get this person or this person or this person." So I was kind of involved, and yeah, that's the literary portion is definitely like the redheaded stepchild of Treefort. Uh But man, it was my happy place for that week in March every year because, I'm up to my neck in kids most of the time or on the road touring, book touring or just, geographically isolated living up in the mountains. So, I mean, I don't even get out to see my friend's band. I don't get out enough to see I saw so much music in the '80s and '90s, before I was a family guy. So going to Boise every year, man, it was just such a treat for me, man. Holding court at the 10th Street Underground, the Record Exchange is like one of the greatest record stores in the country, and I've gone to most of them. Every time I go
Nice.
on the road, I have the bookseller. I go, "Take me to the best record store in town," and then because the bookstores will ship for free, and I go, "Hey, just put like Dick's dollar discount records on this and send it back to my house," so my wife doesn't know I'm spending a fortune. But like, there's just so many great the venues, the Neurolux, El Cora Shrine, like so many great venues. And then there's, Pie Hall for some late night pizza. You got that great little bass section. Can you tell I love Boise? Sing me some Boise, lud. The Idaho Tourism Commission is listening.
Well, um, yeah, I mean, Treefort's really awesome. Um, and Eric Gilbert, who runs it, he also promotes shows. Duck Club is his promotion company, and there's a lot of stuff going on show-wise and stuff. And there's some good bands going on. There's always been a lot of good bands in Boise somehow. Some of my favorite bands ever. Um, yeah, I mean, you mentioned all the raddest places here.
Yeah, I just love the tense I mean, I'm really, really sad that I'm missing out on it. They kinda the stewardship changed for the literary thing,
Mm,
so I kinda
gotcha.
aged out. They're like, we want 3 young writers from Brooklyn that are all sharing an apartment that we don't have to pay." You know what I mean? I was like, "You don't have to pay me. Just put me in a room that's got a couple of queen beds so I can bring my family along and just give me free passes." Like, I would just do it for free every year because it was like, God, I just needed it so bad. I'd see, like, 20 bands in a week, which is more than I saw the rest of the year.
We should get you back.
And
We'll get you back in some capacity if you wanna be there that
yeah,
bad.
well, make
There's
me
gotta
your
be
roadie or
some
something.
way to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how does that work though? Like, I mean, 'cause I believe I've seen either you or Tree People a couple of years, both, I think, at least 1 year, both of you.
Mhm.
Are you guys just I mean, do they even ask or they just pencil you in every year?
Mhm.
Because like, I mean, you guys are Boise and you're on that main stage every year I think I've been there.
Yeah, we have played there's one year that I just played solo, but the first I think the very first year we headlined it maybe, and then just yeah, I've been a part of it every year. This year, we're not on the main stage. For some reason, we kind of they didn't have us penciled in automatically, so I it's somehow we waited a little too late. So we're closing the whole thing down at the Shrine Ballroom on Sunday night, which is
D
great. I
down
love the Shrine Ballroom a lot.
I do too, except when you're, like, eating g boiled hot dogs downstairs and you see that floor, like, breathing. I mean, that thing is just, like, structurally, I'm not so sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to wax about it, but, like, I tell people, I mean, it's like it reminds me of, like, South by Southwest 40 years ago, you know what I
Mhm,
mean? It's just
mhm.
so there's just so much great you got music, literature, film, dance, food, beer, all that stuff, and everything is so dang proximate. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the other thing, you're not walking all over town, nothing's farther than 8 blocks, although they did move the main stage, I didn't like that. The main stage is all the way down at the more of the financial district side of town, right? It used to be right
Well,
there
no,
by
it's
the
in the park now.
Okay, but it used to be there by the Oahe, and it was just
Literally.
so convenient, like, I mean, you could just,
Mhm.
like, y throw down a couple pints at 10th Street and walk, like, a block and a half, and you are right there.
Yeah.
Um,
But I like it
so
at the park too, 'cause then there's two stages at the park. Actually, 3 of them. I like it there. It's a little bit off the beaten path, like, away from the record exchange and stuff, but it's nice,
you're likely aware of my pal, Steve Turner. Mudhoney is now a Boisean. Have you guys hung out yet? You should. I'd fucking
yeah,
love to
that's how, I heard about you. Andrea told me that, you might be interested in talking, so
she's
and
amazing, isn't she?
she is,
She's
yeah,
like the glue to every I mean, she's just like one of these people that connects everybody to everybody. There's been
totally.
feuds in Seattle music, 35-year long feuds, like, where ex-bandmates wouldn't talk to each other, and she is actually, like,
Oh,
got them to reconcile. Yeah,
that's
she's
sweet.
amazing, and she does everything for Steve. Sorry,
That's
Steve. She's
really
like his
sweet, I love
Rolodex
that.
yeah.
Yeah, she's
So
cool.
I would love
She's
to see a
hilarious.
Boise supergroup project with you 2, given your respective influences, experience, sounds, etcetera. That'd be pretty amazing. That's my pitch to you. Thoughts?
Well, I don't know. We one time had a weird somehow I was traveling and passing through Portland and spent a night at Isaac Brock's house, which I hadn't done and didn't do again, but for some reason, I needed a place to stay, and he put me up, and I had some friends there that I went and played some pickup basketball with, and I got back, and he was there with Steve Turner and, and, oh, what's his name? Johnny Marr. And we had a little jam session with the 4 of us, which was the yeah, the I'm not gonna say the closest thing to a all-star band, like a full-on all-star band. Nothing came out of it, but it was a fun couple hours of I was playing drums, and I'm not a good drummer, and I think Johnny was kinda losing patience with me a little bit as a drummer.
How does something like that start, where you get all these accomplished musicians in one place, it sounds like you were switching instruments even, but, like, does somebody go, "Hey, I got an idea?" I mean, I don't,
I
I'm
don't
not.
know, I can't remember, I feel like I just kinda came home from this basketball game and they were all there, like, maybe Johnny was staying there as well, and then Steve was just kind of in the neighborhood. I feel like he and Isaac had maybe Steve had just moved to Portland, they were hanging out a little bit, I don't really know this story, but yeah, it was nice.
Before I forget to ask, my producer Jason wants me to ask that, he wants to know what was the inspiration for the song "You Were Right."
I don't really remember, I kinda had that riff for a long time, and then I think I just sang the chorus, just sang it out of my face, just trying to make up a melody, and then, just, "Oh, how about if the verses say you were wrong?" You know? And when you said these other things, and then I tried thinking of things, and then I don't really remember
Mhm.
a eureka moment, but, um
I don't know why you picked that particular song, but I had to ask. So
well, yeah, it's the one where I quote a bunch of, classic rock lyrics and say you were wrong when you said, "All that glitters isn't gold," and all that kinda stuff. So, all the kind of positive you were wrong when you said all these positive things. Or no, you were right when you said the positive things, you were wrong when you said everything's gonna be alright. So the song's a negative song. Um, anyway, and I tried to, like, make up, a bunch of new ones, like, find a bunch of other quotes to use in the song, and I honestly can't think of any or maybe 1 or 2, but I thought, "Oh, yeah, this would be easy, make up a bunch more quotes from classic rock songs about how bad the world is," but just those ones all fit really well, like, meter-wise and message-wise.
Yeah, I once read a poet told me it's called a Cinto poem or something like that. I wrote an entire poem that was just the title of other books. It was
Mhm.
a love story to booksellers I read at a book selling conference, but, like,
Nice.
every single word in the entire poem was a book title, and it was all kind of sewn together, and it was actually sort of lucid, but it was a fun exercise.
That's
So
cool, that
do you start with lyrics, or do you start with a riff, or does that vary?
riff always, never start with a lyric. I don't have a book of lyrics. I don't have lyrics at all. I have a bunch of songs that could be songs that had lyrics, so lyrics are a struggle for me, and they're definitely the last thing. I have the melody that I want the lyrics to sing, but, um, yeah, the words themselves never came easy for me, and even more the older I get, the less lyrics I write.
So, I know I keep coming back to Boise, but you've said all these bands. I mean, as far as the outside world is concerned, I mean, the only names I really remember being associated before Built to Spill and Tree People with Boise, and a couple of the bands you've named were like Nikki Sixx was from Boise, and Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Uh-huh.
Like, catch us up a little bit, like, because
Well, yeah, there was, Septic Death,
okay, I've heard of Septic Death.
Pushead, the
Oh,
artist.
Pushead, the artist. Yeah,
He
right,
was the
right.
singer of that, but they were a little before my time. He had moved away and they were done playing before I got into punk rock, moved here in '84. I think they were done before that.
Okay, see, I didn't know Pushead was from I never put that together. I remember him from, like, early '80s, like,
Yeah.
Maximum Rock and Roll, those
Mhm.
cartoons, still remember his style.
Totally.
So, Septic so you did have kind of a early '80s punk scene. Like, I don't I didn't what were there
I don't
what
know
were
if
the
there was anything else. I think those guys and then State of Confusion. There was a few other punk bands, but they were by far the best one. Caustic Resin started back then, and Caustic Resin is one of the best bands in the universe to me. Brett Netson, guitar player, played in Built Spill a lot. It was his band. He plays in other things. He plays in Earth, and he played with Mark Lanigan a bunch and stuff. But um, Caustic Resin, the medicine's all gone. Um, and I mean, all their records are great, but my favorite is that and Fly Me to the Moon. Those are kind of my favorites when they were in their prime. And they were put out. Those records came out on Up Records, the label that we put out There's Nothing Wrong with Love on. It's Chris Takino's label. We put out the first Modest Mouse things, and some other stuff, and he passed away, and now Sub Pop does all that stuff. But Caustic Resin, State of Confusion, Dirt Fisherman was a great band that they started at the same time Treepeople started, and we would play together all the time before we moved to Seattle. We were like, we'd open for bands when they came through town and stuff, and they were amazing. Um, those are the big ones. There's other bands along the years too. Right now, my favorite thing is Braided Waves. It's this guy Otis, and he's had different people in the band over the years, but he's just I love his music a lot. It's some of my favorite music ever too. Um, there's a band, French Tips. This woman Ivy, who she had a great band called Le Fleur in the I don't know the aughts or the teens, and Get Wet Plus, great punk band she had. She's also in another band with her husband called oh my god, what are they called? It's such a weird name. I can't think of it right now.
Well, I hate these questions myself, but I gotta ask you, like, we're talking about bands and stuff, is give me some records. Now, these don't have to be we can get outside of Idaho. You can go as far ranging as you want, musically, genre, anywhere, but name some records that just really blew your mental barn doors off. My mind tends to go blank when somebody asks me to put me on the spot, like, top 10 records or something like that, but just some records off the top of your head that maybe aren't that well known that can blow some minds.
First of all, my friend's band is called Night Skill. I just remembered it. Um, well, I think like Hatful of Hollow by the Smiths when I was a teenager. That was a pretty mind-blowing record. Um, You're Living All Over Me by Dinosaur was a big deal for me. That really informed Treepeople for me a lot and Built to Spill. Um,
Last time I was at, Treefort, they played on the main
yeah.
stage. Fucking loud, dude. I don't know who's louder, them or the OCs, 2 of the loudest bands I've ever seen.
Um, um, I don't know. I thought Ziggy Stardust was a really incredible record. Made was something I listened to over and over again. Um, Butthole Surfers. Um, the Hairway to Steven was a great record. That was one of the few records like when I loved the band and then their new record was like their best thing. Most bands I felt like I would love them and then their new record I wouldn't like. You know, it was like such a letdown. They changed their sound or brought some keyboards in or something happened that I didn't approve of as a teenager.
I
Um,
remember seeing Butthole Surfers in, like, 1983 at the Metropolis,
oh
and I
wow.
think at that point I think they had 2 drummers, and I think they were brother and sister.
Uh-huh.
Does that sound right to you?
I think they're not brother and sister, but they look like a brother and sister.
Yeah, they look like brother
Yeah.
and sister. I was just like, "What weirdness is this?" It was just kinda different than we're than this kind of the OC hardcore, like, they were different. They were,
Yeah, I mean, especially back then, because I liked them. They became more of like a, almost kinda classic rockish a little bit by the record I'm talking about. Um, but back then, they were very experimental and very just fucked up, but I love my Paul Leary's, one of my hero guitar players.
okay, so life stuff. If you hadn't been making your living as a musician all these years, give me an idea what you think you might be doing.
Jeez. I guess my last job was bartender at the Neurolux, and that was kind of the best job I felt like I had had up to that point. I didn't go to college. I went to a tiny bit of college and didn't last very long. Um, as a kid, I drew a bunch, and so I thought I would do art or at some point when I was a little kid, someone told me that if I'd like to draw, I'd be an architect. 'Cause that's like, if you can draw, but you want a actual career, that's what you do.
You
Um,
did you stop drawing?
Yeah, I got more into music, and I kinda did them both for a while, but I
Well,
really loved music more, and drawing fell off, and every once in a while, I'll do it a little bit, or I don't know, I guess I had a period a few years ago where I drew for a year or 2, but I don't really like it as much as I used to, and, yeah, music I just like music, making music a lot more than drawing.
so how old were you when you were a bartender at the Nerlux?
I
You were still
was
playing in the band. You just weren't making a living.
Yeah, exactly. I I was whatever, 24, 25, that age, um,
E The
and
Nerlux has been around a long time.
yeah, they just opened back then, and my friend opened it and, gave me a job.
Yeah, I remember my friend Willie Vlotten, his band, Richmond Fontaine was gonna play at the Nerlux, and, the band was like, "Ah, man, we gotta slog all the way to Boise from Portland." They weren't really excited about it. He goes, "But dudes, we're playing with Dr. John." And, like, and everybody's like, "Whoa, wow, alright, Dr. John." Everybody's all like, "Nah." They got there, and Willie realized it was Doctor Hook, but still kind of a big deal. I mean,
Yeah, well
sharing the night together. You'll remember that one from American Top
yeah, but I
40 or
can't believe that yeah, that surprised me that I missed that show. I had no idea Doctor Hook played at the Neurolux, that's great.
yeah, so that must have been, like, mid, late '90s.
Mhm.
Well, man, I gotta say, I like your style. Your humility is refreshing. It's been really cool. Thanks for joining me. He is Doug Martsch. He's a musical treasure. He's a good dude, and indeed, he is a fresh face in hell. Doug, man, thanks. I appreciate it. Appreciate you. We all appreciate you, and I think I'm coming out to Boise in maybe April for spring break. Visit Steve
Oh,
and Andrea, maybe. So maybe I'll
hmm,
pull you out for a beer at the 10th Street Underground.
please. Thanks, Jonathan, appreciate you. Thanks for, taking the time.
Yeah, no, thank you, my friend. He is Doug Martsch.